looking out for their interests as it relates to politics. So you might have a corporation that is looking out for their interests. They're going to give money to both parties. So no matter who wins, their interest is going to be taken care of because they've already greased both sides' heads. But you have a population of people, and our people, who give their vote 95% to the blue party. And if a group of black people will venture off into another party, then they're considered toms, turncoats, traitor to their race, just all kinds of the most filthy names. So it's no wonder that you have a guy who's been in Washington for 40 years, never made any systemic change to the benefit of our people. The changes he made were anti-black. When you look at the policies, when you look at the crime bill, I mean, he not only did he author it, he authored the bill with racist segregationists. Jesse Helms, Strom Thurmond, Robert Byrd, and he was very arrogant about that. And then you look at his statement in terms of welfare reform. Oh man, the arrogance when he was on the floor saying you heard of these welfare queens driving luxury cars. And then we'll go to the banking bill, which is why we have payday loans in our poorest communities, which is why when you get your credit card and you're late, you can pay as much as 30% interest. He also wiped out where you couldn't, it made it harder for people who were struggling for medical bills to file bankruptcy and get from under their debt. These are actual policies that appear to me to be racist in nature because racism and prejudice are two different things. A lot of people will say a black man's a racist. Now, he could be a bigot, but at least in my world, racist is policies that deal with a systemic structure that the black man has no control over. We have no control over the banking system, which he wrote the banking bill. We have no control over the criminal justice system. And Joe Biden writes the criminal justice, the crime bill. We also have no control over the educational system. So these policies that he instituted, which were everything but pro-black, and now he wants to go into a black radio show and tell people that if you don't vote for me, that you're not black. And it's not like that statement was in isolation. That statement goes back to one year when he was running with Obama. He said he goes to a black church in Richmond, Virginia, mind you. Richmond, Virginia, mind you. A black church, and tells them that if you don't vote for me, and the operative word, and I don't have the facility to bring that up, but Google it. The operative word is y'all. He didn't say they were going to put us back in chains. He said they're going to put y'all back in chains. I ain't going back in no chains because I'm a white man. But y'all black people, if you don't vote for me, see, it's the pattern of his shit. The arrogance of his shit. The hubris of his shit. That makes him, in my eyes, worse than Trump. Because when you look at Donald Trump, he owned the New Jersey Nets. He had a lot of football players. I believe he does stuff for Herschel Walker right now today. A lot of the boxing matches were in Trump Towers, or not Trump Towers, but the Trump casinos. He was real good friends with Don King and Mike Tyson. He gave money to Jesse Jackson's 1988 Rainbow Coalition presidency run. He rented Jesse Jackson room in one of his buildings to run his Operation Push. These, to me, if you look at it from a critical thinking perspective, are not the behavior of a racist. Now, has he said some things that might come off as racist? Of course. And he might be, me, myself, I'm pro-black. I'm not anti-white, but I'm pro-black. So I think we all have a certain kind of bias for our kind. But it was nothing about him being a racist. When he had The Apprentice, I never even watched The Apprentice. You know how many black women would call me up and ask me, was I watching The Apprentice? You got to see who he's going to fire. You got to see that. Never once did I hear one word about Donald Trump being a racist. He only became a racist when he decided to run against the Democratic Party. I mean, and if you go back and look at the a Phil Donahue show in 1987, I think it was, and he was writing about China and Japan and all these countries taking us to the cleanest. And really, it's expounded tremendously since he made that call. And the lady asked him, "Well, who would you pick for vice president?" In 1984, and she's not one of my favorite people at all. He said he would consider Oprah Winfrey. Now, is this a racist? And the narrative that's parroted by CNN and MSDNC is Orange Man bad. And we have a serious in our community Trump derangement syndrome. It paralyzes people where you said at the top of the show about critical thinking, where all critical thinking is out the window. Most people can't even articulate why he's a racist. They'll say what he said about Baltimore. But what he said about Baltimore and the rats, he didn't mention race one time. Bernie Sanders came to Baltimore and said, man, I walked through Baltimore and it looked like a third world country. Elijah Cummings said on the Senate floor, I'm walking through Baltimore and they're like zombies. Drug addicts all over the place. Rat infested. These are their words. They're not my words. But they're not labeled a racist. And Trump is. And nobody questions that. And here's the insanity of our people. That if you don't go along and buy along, and if you ask questions of just their thinking, of their reasoning, whether I'm a Trump supporter or not, I'm asking questions. You're either negative, you're a Trump supporter. They never answer the question. So I was always taught to think, and being in the family that I was in with 5 of us, a lot of the times I had to watch before I could speak. So I was always thinking, and I had a father that he was like a prosecutor. If he asked you a question, you knew another question was coming. So you had to, if you were lying anyway, you had to be able to think past the next lie. And we don't even think. We just parrot what somebody else tells us, and then we take that as the gospel. Not knowing these people like Rachel Maddow, Joy Reid, they get paid to make people think what they think. And people will brush that off like, I think what I want to think. But the media is a very powerful thing. And you can bet your bottom dollar, if it wasn't able to program you, they wouldn't call it programming. if it wasn't able to program you during the Super Bowl, you think they would pay $5 million for 30 seconds? Because the media has the potential, if you hear something over and over, you take it as the gospel. And we as a people, we get addicted to one side or another in the political spectrum without even caring about our own self-interest. And the Democrats, to tell you how much they really care about policy and uplifting our people, most people that vote for them can't name 3 policies that the Democrats have given to them in the last 50 years. It's a real sad commentary that if you are giving your vote to a group, one group, and you can't name a policy that they've given you, you're still going back to the voting rights bill, which was 1950. They give $80 billion a year to Israel. If they tell you that you're the backbone, the loyalist constituency of their party, what is your investment? And when I ask my people, what are you getting in return for your vote? All you can hear is, he's better than Trump. So it's no wonder that you have, the dude's not even a closet racist. He's an outwardly overt, arrogant racist. I mean, he don't try to hide. I mean, and narcissism is to accuse the other person of the exact same shit you're doing. Now, Donald Trump, he could be a racist. But what I find is the Democratic Party, and because they play this card, the identity politics card, and they play the race card, it's going to come back and bite them right in their ass. Because, it's like a boomerang. It's the nature of life. This shit you do will eventually come back to you. So they yip and yap about how racist Trump is. And what happens? They come out at the beginning of the election with all of this diversity. They had women. They had a Chinese man, 2 African Americans, or so-called African Americans, Cory Booker and Kamala Harris. You had several different women. But in the end of the day, like a magician, poosh, what do they have? Who did they coalesce around? A 77 old white man who has a history of anti-black policy, and then they tell you, me, black people, to suck it up, eat it. All he did, his bona fides in the black world was going to Starbucks and getting Obama coffee. All he was Obama's coffee boy. That's his bona fides in the black community. And Obama gave him a little assignment that every year, because he didn't have the balls to go speak to the NAACP, was, Joe Biden, you go speak to the black dudes and keep me in touch with them. That's his only bona fides in the black community. And for anybody with a fish food for a brain, anybody blue will do, and as a people, we accept it. In an election where we have all the leverage in the world, Donald Trump, for whatever it is reaching out. He gave more money to HBCUs. He wrote the First Step Act, which is allowing a lot of people to, with little menial, nonviolent drug crimes to be released. That's known African Americans. All you got to do is go to his website. He's worked with Isaiah Washington, the actor. He's also worked with Van Jones. They, is this what a racist would do? All you have to do is go to the website and hear the testimony. Now, I'm not going to tell you to vote for Donald Trump, but I'm saying if you're going to tell me to vote blue for anybody blue will do, at least be able to articulate why you should. But our people are so indoctrinated. They've been had. They've been hoodwinked. They've been bamboozled. As Denzel Washington said in the movie. But it's funny, but it's true. I mean, they've been indoctrinated to just accept the lesser of two evils. And when you do that, you always have less, and you'll always have evil. And it's a sad commentary for our political maturity moving forward, because we are in a real crisis situation. We are headed to automated jobs. Once this virus is over, things are going to be different economically, politically, and we just can't accept the crumbs off the table simply because they're coming from the Democratic Party. Now, hopefully, if Biden wins, he'll make good on his due, but he has a record, and I'm looking at his record, and I don't see it happen. So I would just say that we have to, and of course, the question comes to me always comes to me is, well, what's the alternative? Well, there's plenty of alternatives. You must, first of all, if that's your philosophy, you got to get an agenda written in almost his blood that what he's going to do. Because we've heard the lip service that we're going to take care of you. We just got to get in office. That's number one. Number two, we got to be more active in our own personal community and more pressing of our leaders, of our church, to demand these people who are meeting with Biden, to demand what he's going to do. And we got to move away from the identity politics, because identity politics is the Democratic Party dealing from the bottom of the deck. If we give you one of these, one black vice president who is just as has neoliberal policies that are just as detrimental as a Republican, then what's the benefit to us other than turning on the TV and seeing her, a black woman, as the vice president? Now, there's something symbolic in that, and I get it. But do you think the masses on Greenmount Avenue, do you think the masses in Walbrook Junction are benefiting from that? It's the petty bourgeoisie, the Roland Martins of the world, who get in or get on their little platform and tell you that we got to vote blue and anybody blue will do. It's insane. Do the Zionists do that? Do the corporations do that? And really, the political system is such that they don't really care about the white working class. China, which Trump has tried to make us keenly aware of, is in charge of 85% of our antibiotics. 85%. So how did that happen? Because both parties farmed out middle class jobs to China for cheap labor. Now China has a big middle class, and we have the haves and the have-nots. So we as a people, we have to rally, not in a violent way, but rally at every Democratic gathering over the next couple of months, and be just as fervent about the police brutality as we should be with pressing the Democratic Party to take the knee off of our necks in inequality.